Of the day 40. So today we're taking sort of a sophisticated kind of guitar solo, and it's all chord tone based motifs. So it's not really like a pentatonic scale or blues scale thing at all. But you know, if you want a jazzier sound, this kind of knowledge is important to know. Okay, so what I'm doing here is I'm just superimposing a lot of different arpeggios. And you know, we're talking about G7. And remember what I said, if you want to get some ideas on things that you can play over G7, you want to look at G7's diatonic system, which would be C major, right? Dominant chords are always going to be like 5 chords, you know, even though in the blues it functions as a 1 chord, but it still gives you some hints to what you can play over it. So I play basically 3 different chord tone phrases here. And in the beginning, I'm just playing notes from G7. That's all I'm doing, right? But as it goes on, it gets a little more complicated. At one point, I play an E minor 7 type of arpeggio, and I'm going to show you why that's important, because, or why that works nicely over G7. Because look, when we're talking about E minor 7, it's an E, a G, a B, and a D chord, right? These are the notes in the chord, okay? Now, if we look at it from this perspective, it's got a 1, a flat 3, a 5, and a flat 7, right? But if we do a little arranging here, something crazy happens. Look, if we take this note and put it at the top, and then we go like this, well, what happens is that you get a root, I'm thinking G7, remember? 1, 3, 5, and 6, right? So this sounds a lot like a G6 chord, which is a dynamite sound for the blues. The other thing that I do, and I did this on the last one, lick of the day, what would it be, 39? I play this F major 7 arpeggio over the chord. And remember, you know, this chord is spelled like this, G, B, D, and F. So I'm playing off the 7th. That's an easy way to think about it, right? I'm playing the diatonic chord that's on the 7th. So if we look at that, well, what are we going to get here? F, A, C, and E. Well, that's the flat 7 of the G7 chord, right? This is the 9th. This is like the 4th. And this E is like a 13. So I'm making the sound of like a G13 kind of sound, right? So it's a very sophisticated, jazzy kind of sound. To me, it sounds sort of old school, but that's okay. It's good, right? You want to sort of appeal to, you know, the tradition of old school blues and jazz from time to time. So, all right, so look what we got here. See, in the beginning of the solo, I'm just playing some chord tones. This is going to be what would this be? The flat 7. This would be the 3rd, and this would be the root, right? And then I'm playing another little piece of that G7 chord, and this is going to be the flat 7 again. This would be the 5th, and this would be the 3rd, right? So this is where that E minor 7 thing comes about. Remember, it's going to sound a lot like a G6 kind of sound, okay? So that's what's going on there. Pay attention to the rhythm. This note here is a chromatic passing tone. It's just the way that we like to approach chord tones, from a chromatic note below. So that's what's happening there. Now this is just sort of like, you know, like a sort of a lick coming right from, you know, what we call the dominant scale, or if you want to think in terms of Mixolydian scales like that, but with the chromatic passing tones in it. And over here, this is the F major 7 arpeggio that's going to give us like a G9 sound, okay? So that's how this works. I suggest you know, learn it. It's not really that hard. If you pay attention to the demo video that I do, you're gonna notice that to make it sound bluesier and less jazzier, I'm gonna bend up to some of these notes. So if you like that kind of thing, you can try that too. All right, so this is how we're gonna play it. Remember, the first measure is just little pieces of a G7 chord, just, you know, some chord tones, right? So this is how I play it. Next part is still just parts of a G7 chord. Next, I'm going to play that E minor 7 sounding thing, but remember I approach it by a chromatic passing tone, so below the E, and then I play. And then I play, you know, some ideas from the G dominant scale. But I bend. And when I land on that F note, that's where I play that F major 7 arpeggio. But I bend to it. Okay, so when we put it together, it sounds like this. All right, so play along with it, and let's see how it turns out. So I'd like to thank all my subscribers on Patreon. Without, you know, your support, these videos become more and more difficult. So I want to thank you for that $5 a month that helps support these things. And remember, for those of you who aren't, you know, following me on Patreon, you know, there's lots of PDFs and backing tracks and extra stuff on there. So if you're inclined to check that out, please do it. Okay, so everybody have a nice week, and I'll see you during the next lick of the day.